Good evening, everyone. It's the SFL Podcast. The crew is back together. Mighty RX, Andy Hamilton here with you tonight. Mighty, how you doing after this fine Friday we've had today?
It's been a very good week, especially being able to bounce back from the sour taste that was left in our mouth after our game with Mexico City. It was also a long week because prepping for the Hyenas was no small feat or small task, and we're hoping that we were able to, cross our I's and dot our T's and get all our P's and Q's in a row and all that for good, all the fancy words, and hopefully we'll get everybody a good show on Sunday night.
We had a long week of exciting news, exciting action going on all around the SFL, as well as quite a few close games. We'll get to all that in a minute, but I want to start, Mighty, by discussing the huge news across the SFL. Former NFL running back Ryan Moats joining Cameron Irvine in the front office. He's going to do wonders for this league, as I know, and as you know, but we wanted to touch a little bit on just sheer reaction to the news, and what do you think is in store for the SFL future, Mighty?
I believe that with Mr. Moats' involvement, and especially with his experience at EA, helping them kind of shape their superstar mode over there in the early teens, as well as his current role as vice president of the retired players. It's kind of an avenue for the SFL platform to kind of branch out and get more. How can I say, not famous, but to be more out there. I'm not using the proper term. just to kind of wind this base as to who exactly has access and knows about. So kind of now we're more of a niche, so to speak, but to grow that niche should be more something that's usual and casual for the casual football fan and football observer, and as well as maybe some fresh ideas of how and where we could kind of take the SFL ownership, coaching roles, the star players maybe have different ideas about how to go about attributing certain things, and just some fresh concepts, from a different place, from a player's perspective that actually participated in the league itself. And I at this point I'm only speculating. I haven't spoke to the man himself, nor have I spoken to Cam since the announcement. This is only random speculation about things that may happen, or how I see things unfolding.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good points. The work that he's done with EA, as well as in the NFL Retired Players Association, all are key points that I think makes this not only the perfect addition for the SFL, but the perfect addition for Ryan to kind of get involved with a quality product that is not only going to revolutionize sim football, but I think football gaming, hopefully, as an overall product. There were talks and discussions in the question and answer about how this could affect 2K and maybe their willingness to make another sim football game. We'd obviously love to get involved with that, but on a day-to-day basis, I think this can affect the league in more ways than people are imagining, and it is definitely a huge positive for any league, much less a league that Cam puts on and that does so much. So with that in mind, we also had games this week, believe it or not, and there were some crazy ones, Mighty. Let me know, where do you want to start on this sheet as you and me roll into this Week 5 action?
Let's switch it up. We're going to start with the Chicago Wildcats during that were part of that Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Fanfare, 100, So we had 100 viewers on YouTube. There's just madness, like so many eyeballs watching this one game, and Chicago came to play.
Right.
I believe I believe they had. Did they have 40 at halftime?
They had
45.
45 at the half.
Crazy.
Right.
Like they came to play, and it was kind of, watching the game, I kind of felt bad for Carolina because it's like they were stuck with this, trying to run this one play to Johnny English, and he kept catching and running straight out of bounds and losing 3 or 4 yards a pop every time he did so, and it kind of shot themselves in the foot, and then, but in the second half, they came out of the locker room, they were fired up, they started make a game of it, they started fighting back, but it was almost like too little too late at that point because they had dug a hole that was so deep. But my goodness, Deion Hawkins put on just a show. He came out with like, hey, y'all talk about all these other running backs. I'm a good one too. And he just, he went about just running through, repeatedly, time after time, running, just piercing and then slashing through that Skyhawk defense for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was crazy.
Yeah, and to Carolina's credit, to that point, we hadn't seen an incredible performance like that out of Hawkins, so I don't think it was too far out of their realm that they might have not imagined such a strong performance by him. However, you have to imagine that Carolina could have done a little bit more in the pass game early on. Later in the second half, they had a couple picks off of King. I think it was 4 total by the end of the game. But, you'd imagine that in the first half of play, they could have done a little bit better because, at the break, while Cam was giving that incredible announcement, I was worried that Carolina was going to let 90 up. And it would have been the first game in SFL history would have seen with 90 points by the end of it, and the defense came along in the second half. But, for me, Chicago ran the table the first half, took care of work, and then just kind of coasted through the second half and took the victory and got out of there. I will have a little bit more of a bone to pick with Carolina once we come power rankings time. But for now, hats off to Chicago. They're still doing their work. They got what would appear to me to be back on the horse this week, and kind of showed that they have the run game to go along with that strong passing game, and show that they're still contenders in the Eastern Conference despite losing to Baltimore.
The next matchup I want to look at is that Monday night. We had a heck of a ball game. Listen, man, coming into this game Monday night, you had two of the better running backs in the league. You know what I'm saying? Between BDG, Hollywood, and JCK,
right.
With touchdown machine JCK. They finished the game with 16 rushing yards combined.
Wow.
So this game Monday night was two defenses that said, you know what? We understand y'all love balance, and we understand Hollywood. You're the dynamo to Atlanta's offense. JCK, you're that home run threat. We're taking y'all away. Christensen, Mandel, win the game. So through the first 3 quarters, it was 3-3. Then all of a sudden there was an explosion of scores because in the fourth, Atlanta dropped 21. Tallahassee dropped 17, and Atlanta prevailed 24-20. So this game, I'm a defensive man. Okay, I love me some defense. If the final score of a game can be 2-0, I'm in heaven. Because to me that's the kind of football I like. Those 45, 37s, 63. That makes my heart beat fast. It gives me heart palpitations. I don't like that. So this game was great till that fourth quarter, and then it was big play after big play. It was like safety out of position, touchdown, corner out of position, touchdown. It was like crazy madness. It was fun to watch, a lot of fireworks because you couldn't tell who was going to do what till the final seconds of the game where Atlanta was able to prevail. But the game was great. If you haven't seen the game, give it a watch. It's one heck of a ball game. Ludacris came to play. Just both defenses just stood tall and said, nope. No running games will dominate today. You're gonna have to pass the ball to win. And Atlanta did just enough to get that W.
Yeah, I think the point that you brought up in saying to Christensen and Mandel, go win us the game, was the perfect epitome of what won this game, because Christensen, 40 for 51, 1 touchdown and 3 picks versus 3 touchdowns and 1 interception 30 for 45 was Malcolm Mandel. So a little bit better of a night for Mandel. And that essentially was enough to make it happen. And Hollywood had a slightly better game than Calvin Kim. So that's what got it done for Atlanta. And they proved, that they are supposed to be in that contention spot in the Eastern Conference. Despite that loss with the timeouts that we all thought was a little finicky, they bounced back this week and had another strong performance. And I think Atlanta's the real deal, man.
Yeah, especially giving Tallahassee their first loss of this season. So that, man, like I said, this ball game was one heck of a ball game. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. If you have watched it, watch it again. Because especially if you're trying to be a coach, like that's the type of defense you want to put together. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're trying to be a defensive coordinator, that's the type of defense you need to put together for your team to not only be successful, but to compete for the second season and beyond. And the next matchup, we got the Legion getting that first W, baby, against the San Antonio Vaqueros. I keep messing that up. The Vaqueros?
Vaqueros, I think.
Okay, the Vaqueros.
Yeah, there you
go. So, and this was a crazy game to the tune of 51-49. I think this is the first game that ever ended in a safety.
I think so too.
SFL
yeah.
Game. It was a crazy game. It almost got to the point. On that safety, it felt like because Langdon had thrown so many interceptions, like I refuse to throw an interception, and got tackled for a safety. It was a lose-lose for him in that situation. But it was what made this game really peculiar. Wasn't just the number of interceptions that Langdon threw, which I think he threw 9. Some crazy. Yeah, he threw 9. It was the fact that the Vaqueros didn't have one single carry to German. No. German did not carry the ball one time that entire game. That right there might be the reason why they lost. Because Jason German is a home run threat.
Exactly.
If there is one in the league. Like if he touches that route, he's dynamic. He's an ankle breaking, juking, just a water bug. And the fact that he did not touch the ball, he did not get a handoff from the quarterback. It's questionable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when you have a gold star on a team, you got to at least give him the ball 5 times a game, even just to see what he can do, because all he needs is one of those plays to break off for a touchdown. And Mighty, I'll tell you, man, I was terrified. I had a bad feeling that they were going to get into a 4th and 1 territory and then hand it off and get that 1 yard with German. Luckily for me, they didn't do that. But hats off to Greg. He put together a game plan that, warranted 9 picks, but still got the job done. 640 yards through the air. You take away those 9 interceptions and Langdon has a pretty good game. His numbers aren't bad besides the picks. So in reality, I agree. I think you got to hand the ball to German because you need those yards. But, the Vaqueros still almost got it done. So we'll take the win. Obviously not complaining about that. The interception right before the end of the half that was returned for a touchdown, that certainly helped. But, a decent night from Tom. We expected to air it out for Vancouver. With the way that San Antonio's defense was built, we really felt like the passing game was a better option than the running game for us. And we put the ball in Tom's hands and said, go get it, buddy. And we'll take that 5 touchdowns to 4 interception ratio in a game like this. And Sanchez did his thing on the ground too. And that's really, I think, was the difference in a game that was mostly passing. But yeah, if you can get the run game going, that'll work.
But this is my last thing I'm going to say about this game. He threw 9 interceptions, and they still had a chance to win the game. Like the game was in overtime, therefore the game wasn't decided after he turned the ball over that many times. And I would say kudos to hanging in there and still making tough throws and throwing for 640 yards. Like I think that's a mile or something crazy like that. And then for the defense to keep him in the game, you know what I'm saying? Even after all those turnovers. So San Antonio, man, they're tough. Like they haven't won a game yet, but they're in every ball game. So hey, nobody try to take this team for granted. Don't do your homework. because San Antonio gonna knock you upside your head to get their first W. So, I'm sorry, I just had to get that in before you moved on to the next point.
All right, let's get it moving then. We'll go to Queen City, St. Louis, the Gladiators against the Corsairs for the second time this season. Queen City gets the W, but St. Louis, can we talk about the halfback for a minute? Adam Fennell comes in, takes over for Evan Murr, 19 carries, 217 yards, and 2 touchdowns, as well as predicted his own touchdown in the chat. Did you see that, Mighty?
No, I missed it because I was watching something else at the same time, so I missed it in the chat.
I was watching the game, and they're lined up, and it's like an I formation. They're like at their own 40 or something, and he just types in the chat. He's like, yep, touchdown right here. Hand it off to me. They handed it to him. He breaks off the right side, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice little scamper. Breaks another tackle. I'm like, okay, he's into the open field, and there he goes. Takes off, and he scores after predicting it. It was incredible. The guy could not be stopped, and St. Louis finally got a lot of run game going in the game, and the 2 interceptions from Alexander was really the thing that separated this game, and the lack of Queen City being able to they just kept running on offense and they kept churning. St. Louis really struggled to get a stop in this game, and that was really the difference. That and the lack of passing offense from St. Louis was kind of what did them in, and Queen City just kept rolling. 202 yards for Kyle Walsh, 3 touchdowns on the ground, and there it is. Queen City sweeps the Gladiators for the season. Did you get a chance to look back at this one, Mighty?
I watched it in bits and pieces. I saw the beginning where Queen City had got an opening kickoff, came down, scored. St. Louis turned around. I believe they had a 2-play drive that went like 80 yards and scored. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a ball game. And then Queen City turned around and scored. And then that's when it kind of hit the wall for St. Louis because they couldn't get the ball moving. And by the time it was all said and done, Queen City dropped 21 in the second quarter and had a gigantic lead. And it was like it was a little too much for St. Louis to surmount. So they're getting their offense in gear somewhat. It's kind of hiccups from here and there because of the lack of talent they have, to kind of receive the ball. So they have to, be creative in how they go about matriculating the ball downfield. Defensively, they have to find a way to use the talent they have to be able to get stops, to at least keep the games close so they have a chance to, win a game, or at least get leads in the fourth quarter. Because then teams have explosive quarters against you is a recipe for disaster, especially when, you don't have the weapons to be able to air it out every down when it's time to come back. But I did watch, and Queen City, in spurts, you see the potential offensively. I saw they spread out Queen City this game in very creative formations and were able to get the ball to the guys. I even saw it was a post corner that they completed to one of their receivers, and it was like, okay, I like the creativity. It's just defensively, we just have to, you can't try to stop everything. That's one thing I learned being a coordinator my first season in Baltimore. You can't stop everything. There's some things you have to. There's some things you're just gonna have to live with. And if you give up 10 yards, give up 10. Giving up 10 yards is better than giving up 50 and a touchdown.
Yeah,
it's just so there's some things you just have to learn firsthand, and hopefully this is a learning process for James Richards and the rest of that St. Louis staff. And hey, I still got the pom-poms in the skirt. I ain't going nowhere. I see the potential, St. Louis, and hopefully they could put a good offensive game plan and good defensive game plan together, and then we could see the best that St. Louis can be. Hopefully, this is the week.
Let's keep moving. 2 city games: Oklahoma City at Mexico City at Oklahoma City, and boy, starting off, man, I thought Oklahoma City was gonna do it, man. They put up let's see here, 35 in the first half of play versus 24 from Mexico City at the half. So it was 35-24 at the half. All Renegades with Pete Bruschi leading the show. The old man still got it, 11.5 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns on the day. And then you know what happened, Mighty? They fell flat. They fell flat on their face.
It was a weird game, man, because in the first half, OKC, they were running the rock. Red Feather was keeping the ball away and then just being conservative. Brewski was just, showing off that, hey, I'm not the old Brewski, I'm the Brewski of old. And he was doing his thing. And then after halftime, it's like they forgot to come out the locker room. And Mexico City kind of remembered, hey, whoa, we're undefeated for a reason. And they just kind of forget asserted. They took what they wanted when they wanted it. It was crazy. This game was like 35 in the first half, nothing in the second. Like not even a field goal, not even just tripping forward into like a interception. They got goose egg. It was bizarre because they were moving the ball so efficiently in the first half, and come the second half, it was like, guys, where we at? Where y'all at? And they were nowhere to be found. It's crazy.
Right. And Ray Bentley still running all over the place, 9.1 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns on the day, 2 receiving touchdowns for KL Barrett and Ryan Moxon, 4 touchdowns thrown for Matt Wilson, 374 yards and 2 picks. But Oklahoma City kind of shows to me that they still got a little bit of juice in the tank. They're not done. They started off strong 2-0. I believe they lost the next 2 and then came into this game and started out hot against Mexico City, who is still undefeated. So I'm having a tough time placing Oklahoma City in my mind, just because of how strong they looked out of the gate, and then how weak they looked for 2 weeks, and then how strong they looked last week in the first half. So I don't know. Going into week 6, half a season left after this week, it's kind of almost which Oklahoma City shows up, the first half or the second half, Oklahoma City. And if it's the first half, boy, you better look out. And if it's the second half, well, we all can make Pete Bruschi jokes in the chat all night as whoever gets blows out the Renegades. Yeah. Anything else to say about this one, Mighty, or should we keep it rolling?
Nah, keep it rolling. We'll touch upon the matchups a little later for the week 6.
There you go. Baltimore and the Cleveland Stallions. One thing I want to say about this game before we talk about how well Baltimore played, Cleveland, they lost everyone. They literally, I believe Escobar went down. They lost Ajelani, so they lost, I believe, both their silver receivers. And then I think they lost a defensive player too, and they still put up 44 and nearly beat Baltimore. They were making a comeback there at the end. So hats off to Mac Wavy Jr., who's got that playbook bumping to lose that many players and then still nearly come back and take it. Hats off to Cleveland, but Baltimore gets the win here, and they're continuing to stay strong. I have their game this weekend to call, and I am pumped to see them versus Atlanta. So Baltimore, hats off, got the job done. Matt South did his thing, 23 for 28 with 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. So he really had 25 completions. So only 3 balls hit the turf all day for Matt South. A real good day, and the chat was already alluding to it, but we'll talk about it here. Sonzo Robinson, Mighty, are you ready for this stat line? 32 carries, 344 yards for 4 touchdowns. What in the SFL are they feeding these running backs these days? Because are you kidding me? 344 yards and 4 touchdowns, Mighty?
I remember last season, Baltimore were having a tough time getting Sonzo going in the running game. Now, they threw a ton of passes to him last season, but when it came to just getting a handoff and Sonzo being productive, that was not the case. Apparently they found the recipe for Sonzo, because Sonzo was just juking and jiving and first down touchdown. Sonzo put on a performance with ages last Sunday. But if it's not for Mac Wavy basically losing all his receivers, I think they all jumped on the ambulance once once Prince got hurt and like, oh,
Right.
they escorted Prince to the hospital because like he had nobody and he still was making it happen. Hey, like Matt Wavy threw for 548 yards and 5 touchdowns. Only turned the ball over once with no weapons to throw to. Like that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, this is the kind of game I told you as defensive coordinator. This will keep me up at night forever. Like 44 points and lose. Andy, if I told you coming in week 6, your team will score 44 points, how would you feel?
I feel pretty good considering that we never scored more than like 7 before that.
If I told you you get blown out after you scoring 43, like, Max, you're crazy. Well, that's what happened to Cleveland. They scored 44 and still weren't in the game. That's
right.
Bad. Like that's but yes, back to Sanzo. Sanzo was balling. Like what like that song, like Jim Jones, balling. Yeah. Sanzo was balling. Okay. And I hopefully for Baltimore, it's they could keep this going. So Matt Sal doesn't have to be the hero. He just have to be the caretaker. And in that way they could get the ball rolling. I believe this is Baltimore's 3rd consecutive win. So hey, kudos to TJ and the rest of that staff over there. And Matt Wavy, don't hang your head, brother. You had 1-2 in a row. It's only a little hiccup. You had nobody, them boys had your quarterback had nobody to throw to. So and you still put up 44. Man, I'll take that in Alaska any day of the week.
Right.
So this was one entertaining game. Listen, man, this is how crazy it was. Esco didn't play after halftime. He had 200 yards receiving in 2 quarters. Like,
right.
Come on, man. That like I said, this game was just. It was a game about big plays, and unluckily for Cleveland, all the guys that made the big plays, they were escorted to the hospital. And hopefully, these guys come back with a vengeance and wanting to show that wasn't a fluke game. So whoever Cleveland plays this week, you better buckle your chin strap, buckle both, because the chin strap got 2 things. Snap it twice, click, 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 snap that, and be ready because I have a feeling Cleveland's coming for blood.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a minute. Let's keep moving. We got a few games left. Sioux Falls and Houston came out, and Mighty, you got to love this defense. Shuts down Kevin Clancy. 25 carries. Get this, 56 yards, 2.2 yards per carry. He was more effective in the pass game. On 8 catches, he had 67 yards. They couldn't keep Michael Moore from getting the 1 touchdown through the air. They picked off Tyree once. But the Houston defense gives the ball back to their offense, and then DR Sim, 199 yards on 7 catches and 2 touchdowns. Cody Cantrell, 21 for 29, 3 touchdowns, and are you ready for it? Clean sheet, no picks. Houston continues to roll. This team's looking strong, Mighty, and they got to play Mexico City at some point, right? And that clearly has got to be a game of the week.
Yeah, but we play them Sunday night in the game of the week. So I'm just saying it's going to be a ball game down in Houston. It's our first trip down. It's our first trip down to Houston coming up. So it's going to be fun. But back to their defense. Their defense is a stick. They got a stick over. If y'all watch the game, like their offense kind of took a minute to get going. And, Sioux Falls was able to move the ball between the 20s and, got a couple field goals up. And then when the offense realized, hey, guys, we got a football game going on, they started to get going. The defense was still doing their thing in mitigating the damage Sioux Falls could do. And then stopping their running game, forcing Sioux Falls into a bunch of 3rd and longs where Kit Moore and the rest of that D-line could kind of, light their hair on fire and get after that quarterback and cause him to get, happy feet and throw the ball a little earlier than he might want. Man, Houston's defense is a problem. And it's a problem that I'm glad Cam gave us an extension. I had to try to solve this week. And I don't know if I solved it. Tune in Sunday night to find out. But yeah, man, Houston is for real. That 5-0 is not a fluke. Like they are for real. That defense, and the reason why they're 5-0 is twofold. That defense doesn't allow you to do much of anything. You can't really throw it deep. You can't try to run it. And what's left after that? Like not much. And then offensively, Cantrell is just not turning the ball over. He's just taking what's there. He'll dink and dunk. And then once you think you got them corralled and you're sitting in that cover 2 or your cover 3 gets too aggressive and they press, DR Sim hits you with that deep bomb down the field upside your head, and next you know you just gave up 7 because your defense wasn't patient. So they are a dilemma, and that 5-0 is for real. They're number 2 in the power rankings, I believe, and we'll see if they can keep that up this week.
All right, we'll move to the last matchup of the week. Mighty, your team was at home at the Eye, taking on Dallas. I had the call for the game, so I watched that one with a nice, comfortable seat in the press box. You guys always treat me right when I'm up in Alaska, and you put a romp in and treated Steve Mullinex and the Dallas Roughnecks wrong, beating them 55-28, and everything just seemed to roll for you guys. Talk to me a little bit about Ash Odom and his performance, 220 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day.
If I remember correctly how the game began, Dallas got ball first, and we were able to stop. No, actually, we got ball first, and then first play from scrimmage, Ash took it to the house. Dallas got the ball next. We stopped Dallas, forced a 3 and out. And no, they got the midfield, punted the ball, and they downed the ball around the 4-yard line. And then we went on a drive. Like Ron Cochran told them boys, hop in the Cadillac, boys, we're going on a Sunday drive. And then we get to the 10-yard line. Ash Odom takes a nasty hit. I believe it was their nickelback that hit him. He coughed it up. One of their big boys picked it up, started romping. And if it wasn't for Ron running him down, he would have scored. They tied the game up that way. And after that, it was like we just took off. Big Sexy got his groove on. He just started like he was hungry, and because he was hungry, the rest of the D-line like, hey, you're not the only one that wants to eat. We want to eat, and I believe we finished the game with like 7 sacks. So I'm just the defense, though they gave up a ton of points, because to me 28's a ton. I have very high standings. 28's a ton of points, so to me that's a lot of points. But they balled out. The defense did they thing. Evan Carroll had a pick 6 to close the game out when Dallas was trying to make the score respectable. So, big ups to Steven. I know the Roughnecks, he's having to, figure out how to maximize this build. He had 1-2 straight coming into this game after, starting the season off on the wrong foot. But I'm just happy we're able to, I was able to even my record against the Roughnecks at 2-2, as both coordinator and owner, which is great. We even put the code red zone, especially for Steven. Like the whole offseason was designed on like making sure that we're ready for Dallas.
Right.
And I'm just glad we're able to take care of business against the Roughnecks, because I know they pose a ridiculous problem. Not only with their offense, the way he goes about this offense, but defensively, we know Steven is one heck of a defensive mind. So big ups to the Roughnecks, and I'm just happy to have my 3rd win of the season, having to face Houston this upcoming week.
All right. We're through the games. Let's move on to the power rankings, Mighty. The list came out late last night, and so this is kind of the first breakdown anyone's been able to have. Some people in the chat might not have seen the power rankings at this point, so I'll run through them real quick from bottom to top. 16, St. Louis Gladiators. 15, San Antonio Vaqueros. 14, Vancouver Legion. 13, Carolina Skyhawks. 12, Oklahoma City Renegades. 11, Cleveland Stallions. 10, Dallas Roughnecks. 9, Sioux Falls Sparrows. 8, Chicago Wildcats. 7, Baltimore Crabs. 6, Alaska Storm. 5, Queen City Corsairs. 4, Tallahassee Pride. 3, Atlanta Swarm. 2, Houston Hyenas. And number 1 are the Mexico City Aztecs. So the 2 undefeated teams in the Western Conference sit atop the power rankings. And I said I had a bone to pick with Carolina. Here's my bone. You've won no games, and you're on top of me in the power rankings. Mighty, does that make sense to you?
Not really. I don't know if the voters felt like, not even, because Carolina's last ball game was not a very competitive one.
Right.
Vancouver won their game, even though it took overtime to win it. In my ballot, I had Vancouver ahead of Carolina. So I couldn't even begin to explain what the thinking process might be as to why Carolina's ahead of you. I mean, yes, your team had struggled up to this point to win a game, but they came through last week and took care of business in that fashion, and Carolina has not as of yet. So
Yeah, but they let up. So they let up more points on defense this week and did not score as many points on offense as we did this week. Um, did not win against Chicago. Really only got a lot of those points in the second half. I'm not seeing it, but I wanted to double check that you felt somewhat the same way and I wasn't talking out my butt.
no, no worries. You're all good. But hey, that's why they play the games. There are many more weeks of the season. Just keep on stacking W's, and that 14 spot won't be long for yours if you do so.
Andrew says lowest voter turnout this season, so make sure this next week after the week 6 slate of games ends on Tuesday night with Eric on the call. You guys are doing your power rankings to make sure that we can have a higher turnout going into next week and get some of this right. Mighty, looking over the rest of the list, anything you think is out of place, or does it all look kind of according to standard? Tallahassee with the loss, still above Queen City, kind of interests me because the Corsairs have been looking strong in the last couple weeks.
They have, yeah, they surely have, but I could understand why they have Tallahassee in that slot, especially after, just losing to Atlanta. But then again, they did edge Queen City in their, not forget edge. They beat down
Right.
Queen City in their earlier matchup during the season. So I can see why voters believe that Tallahassee should, has earned that spot ahead of Queen City. I'm just happy the voters wanted, put us in sixth. I didn't. I had us at eighth. I had us behind Baltimore and Chicago. So voters like us better not like us. Go figure. So, but besides that, no, everything looks pretty much in order.
All right, then let's move to this week's matchups. I'll go through the slate here real quick. Sunday at 3 Central, 4 Eastern, Yvonne will be on Rabbit calling St. Louis and Tallahassee. At the same time, I will be on YouTube live. And a quick announcement: this is podcast only, Mighty. No one has heard this besides me and the person it involves. That game will actually have Shan Varner as a color commentator live on YouTube. So me and Shan will have Baltimore and Atlanta. That's live 3 Central, 4 Eastern. So Shan Varner will be with me on the call for that game. That's also at 3. And then at 5 Central, 6 Eastern, Vancouver, Dallas will be on Rabbit with a tryout for Mike on Rabbit. And Colin will have the Cleveland, Carolina game at 5 Central, 6 Eastern on Sunday. That'll be live on YouTube. Then in the evening, Cam has Alaska and Houston for the primetime game. Monday evening, Curtis has Mexico City and Sioux Falls for the Monday primetime game. And Eric on Tuesday night primetime has Chicago and Queen City. The Wildcats pull another primetime game with their activity and strong showing on the field. Mighty, which games are standing out to you to watch, and which ones are you excited about?
Before I get to that, is Shan gonna have the teleprompter and be drawing a bunch of circles on the screen like pow, boom, remember that? And then
no teleprompter. I don't trust him yet.
Dang it, man. Okay. Moving on. Cleveland. I believe Cleveland and Carolina. That's a rematch of an earlier ball game this season.
Indeed,
that's the game where Johnny English got hurt. That's the game where Johnny English got hurt, correct?
Yes, and it was close because had English not got hurt, I believe the statement was that it very well could have gone either way.
Monday night, we got the Aztecs traveling to Sioux Falls, Iowa, to face the Angry Sparrows team. That game there is going to be interesting because I know AJ can coach him he could coach up some defense with the best of them. And Mexico City has a bull of a running back who currently has 1,000 yards through 5 games. So, Ray Bentley's been a problem all season long. Let's see if AJ could solve that riddle. That's going to be an interesting ball game to watch. But that the Vaqueros, the battle between the Cowboys, the Renegades, and the Vaqueros intrigues me.
Okay.
This weekend, because the Vaqueros have they've practically been in every game this season, and OKC started off hot. They've cooled down a bit. Last week, it looked like they might have, figured out what was ailing them, but it was a tale of two halves. This is gonna be an interesting game because this game to kind of end the first half of the season might kind of dictate how each team's second half will go. Can OKC rebound and get to 3-3 going into the second half? Can San Antonio get their first W to kind of set the path for the second half? Because as I've stated since the beginning of the year, the season's a long one. 0-5, 0 in anything. Okay, maybe 0-12. 0-12, you're pretty much your goose is cooked. You have a chance. But still, this is still the first half of the season. 0-5, you get that first dub. You're 1-5. Who knows? You might have a chance. So those two games are the one that kind of stand out. To me, at least for this week. I will throw like an asterisk up in the air because if Atlanta can recreate the magic they had last week and shutting down JCK, if they could shut down Sonzo, that's a tall task because Sonzo's been hot lately.
Right.
Sonzo, he's been volcanic. That's how hot he's been. If they could slow down Sonzo, kind of force Matt South into long downs to have to beat them, that might become a ball game in a hurry. So I can't wait to see how that goes. But the two Monday night, AJ, coach up that D, show me what you got, and can Papa Irvine and Corky, who walks out of there? Who's the only one that walks out of there? Because the other team won't be walking out of anything.
Yeah, to me, that Oklahoma City San Antonio matchup does not excite me at all. It's kind of like when your grandma pulls cookies out of the oven and you're like, okay, all right. And then they're oatmeal raisin and you're like, never mind. So that game doesn't excite me at all. The games that excite me, Baltimore, Atlanta. I agree with you. I think that one's going to be absolutely crazy. I think the Alaska-Houston one has a lot of potential if the Storm bring what they brought to Dallas to Houston. Another Texas team could be in some trouble. And then the Chicago Queen City matchup, that one could get interesting. For me, it's kind of a prove-it game to Chicago. They stumbled against Baltimore, and now they're going to play a Queen City team that's strong after beating a Carolina team that has looked pretty weak this season. So to me, it's a prove-it game for Chicago, and they'll have their chance to show the league that they're as good as they say they are, or are they kind of pretending to be good against teams that aren't nearly as good as a Baltimore or a Queen City. So I think that Tuesday night matchup excites me a lot, and then the Baltimore-Atlanta game that we have early in the week on Sunday at 3 Central, 4 Eastern, that excites me on YouTube. Mighty, any other news to attest to?
Not really. I see we don't have it's not up yet. Don't forget to check out Playmakers. I know Corky's hard at work. He's going to turn it out. He says he tries to put it out by noontime on Saturday. So around lunchtime Saturday, check that out. That should be up and running. I believe Big Sexy's half a sack away from third place all time. So that's going to be interesting if you could get that Sunday night. Can the Legion start a streak? That remains to be seen. And
hey, maybe then, Mighty, I'll move up above the 0-4 teams.
Yeah, I ain't touching that one. That's all you own. I ain't touching that one. Oh my goodness.
Woo! I'll move up one spot. Hot dang. No, I'm just messing. The power rankings in all reality are great. I love having them. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a popularity contest. And apparently this week we lost. So, that's fine. We'll just keep trying to win on the field. How about that?
And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right. For everyone here at the podcast, Mighty, if you're good, I'm good, and we'll get this thing off the air.
Sounds good to me.
All
First
right.
game, people. Don't miss that. We got color. We don't just have play-by-play. We got color. Color. Like some of y'all folk are a little young. Y'all don't remember black and white TV. I'm a little older than y'all. I remember black and white TV. Heck, I remember UHF. If you don't know what UHF is, as Destro, he'll tell you. Okay, so when color came in, color was big. Color was important. Color it gave things flavor. It's almost like you taste the picture. So we got color this week. Shan.
Yeah.
Color. I like it.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting week of SFL commentary as well as games. So it all kicks off Sunday, 3 Central, 4 Eastern, and rolls through like a normal week. We will see you guys all next week. Mighty, we had really good turnout for Friday night. We might have to start considering Friday nights more.
That's if my CFO allows it.
Well, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, for everyone here at the SFL Podcast, it's been a pleasure having you all here in the chat as we had some